Hi everyone, this is Alan Rosinski of Metro Manhattan Office Space. I wanted to share with my viewers what commercial leasing activity is like in New York City. And contrary to what many of you think, there is activity. And there are companies who are taking the current situation of soft rents, high vacancy rates, as an opportunity to acquire space. So, what I could do today is discuss absorption rates in major markets and submarkets, vacancy rates, go through asking rents for each major market of New York City, but I think that might be a little too academic. So alternatively, what I'd like to do is discuss the 11 requirements that I am working on at the moment, because that'll give you a really good idea of what's going on. Now, 10 of those requirements are what's called tenant representation, where my firm represents a particular business in their search for a new space. One of those requirements is a landlord rep assignment, where my firm has an agency agreement to find a tenant for a space, which in this case is for a office condominium located in the 30s near 6th Avenue. So, I want to go through these. These are going to give you an idea of what's going on, particularly the tenant rep requirements. Now, out of the tenant rep requirements, 4 of them are either medical or healthcare related. Much more than what would have been typical about a year ago. 5 of them are for traditional office requirements, and 1 of them is a retail requirement. Now, I think what a lot of these have in common is these organizations, these companies, need to have a physical location. I think where there's been really obviously depressed activity is any office use, which can be outsourced, where the majority of team members, employees are now working at home. But that doesn't mean there's not going to be other sorts of tenants looking around for space. And also what I find kind of encouraging, out of the 10 tenant rep requirements, 6 of them are for expansion space, and 4 of them are lateral moves, and call them lateral value moves. And I would define that as a tenant who has a lease expiration, and they're taking the opportunity to move maybe a few blocks away to an adjacent neighborhood in an effort to reduce their rents. I'll give you an example. I'm working with physical therapy practice in Midtown Manhattan. They're on an avenue, and not an inexpensive avenue, in a building which is on the pricier side. And they were taking this as an opportunity to relocate to the accessory district, an area between 5th and 6th Avenue in the high 30s, which is considerably less. Now, to give you an idea, you can get a deal on a space in the accessory district, office space, for somewhere in the mid to low 30s for the right building. You go to Grand Central, the rents still there are in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and up. So this physical therapy practice is taking this as an opportunity to cut their real estate costs. They're smart. They're going to probably do a 10-year lease. When everything's revived and this current downturn is just a distant memory, they're going to have the benefit of a reduced rent. So to go through some of the other requirements, we're talking about medical right now. I have a psychiatric practice, which is moving from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. Certain neighborhoods in New York have become a little bit less secure, a little less desirable, and they are moving also to the accessory district, a very good value building, nice building in a very secure neighborhood. One thing which is nice about the accessory district, it's in the heart of an area called the Transportation Triangle. It's an unofficial neighborhood. It's a triangle between Grand Central, Port Authority, and Penn Station. It's got that name because it's just so easily accessible to public transportation. Buildings in that area are super convenient for anybody who's commuting into Manhattan. Another example of what I have going on is I'm working with a publicly listed company. They're based overseas. They're in the medical beauty group. They are performing all sorts of very high-end, sophisticated skincare treatments, looking for more than 10,000 feet. I've been working with them since the summer, and again, they're smart, and they're going to lock in a space in New York City at a very affordable rent in a Class A neighborhood. Actually, they're going to be in the Plaza District. But one thing which I see is that companies, out-of-town businesses, which were priced out of Manhattan, are little by little, they're taking this as an opportunity to get a foothold in Manhattan. I'm working with another very successful online retailer. They also have a physical store in Florida, which is in the home furnishings business. and they're taking this as an opportunity to acquire a retail space. That's my one retail requirement at the moment, in a neighborhood where you have a lot of designers. And I mean, what's desirable for that type of industry is the area around Madison Square Park, maybe north to 32nd Street around Madison Avenue, or certain buildings near the Decorator and Design building, which is on 59th Avenue between 3rd and 2nd Avenue. Again, it takes a little bit of courage to act now, but I think they'll be rewarded handsomely in the future. Another expansion requirement I have is a personal liability law firm who I've been working with since last summer, have shown them many spaces, and they are negotiating on a nice space in a well-run Class B building on an avenue in the 30s, not too far from where one of the principals lives. So again, this is a good opportunity. They're growing, they need a new space, and they're viewing this as an opportunity to acquire an office for the long term. In terms of the pace of activity, out of these 10 tenant rep requirements, there are about 2 or 3 of them that I've been working with since the pandemic, and everything really stopped from the months of March until June, with some acceleration this summer, a little bit of a lull. And surprisingly, there has been a certain amount of activity in the last few months, kind of an increasing amount of activity. So if you ask me, I'm pretty confident about the future of the commercial real estate market in New York City. Now, let me just clarify that a bit. It doesn't necessarily mean that landlords will be doing very well, but I think there's always going to be a demand for commercial real estate brokers. I think there's going to be a reshuffling of the market. You're going to have tenants moving around. You're going to have large companies which downsize. You're going to have companies which always wanted to be in Manhattan, which are going to establish a presence here. It doesn't necessarily mean that rents will go back up. It doesn't necessarily mean that landlords will be doing very well. But for your average broker, for somebody who is specializing in commercial real estate, there's going to be plenty of business down the line. If you found this content interesting or helpful, I'd be happy if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can always find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Metro Manhattan. Until the next time.